so I just have the pattern for Kitty Coaster memorized in my head, and it would be easier for me to talk and crochet at the same time when I don't have a pattern. And also, I wanted to let you guys know that I do have some guests that will be coming over soon today, so I might talk a little bit faster in some cases, maybe not, we'll see, but just so I can get finished on time and meet with my guests as well. I did want to show you that I have created, as you've seen, I was making different colors of the kitty coasters, and I made little bundles. So 3 kitty coasters together, different colors, like we were making yellow, blue, and red. And then I made a bunch here, and I have a bunch that I've made already. So we're gonna continue making the color blue today. And of course we will be needing scissors as usual to cut our yarn at the end, and a needle to wave in the ends at the end as well. Here's our stitch marker. You can find the tutorial for this specific project on my TikTok right now. The story I will be telling you guys is very sad and disturbing in some cases, so I did want to warn you about that. I knew about this story before, a long time ago, as I've been into true crime for a while, and I've been wanting to talk about this story, but I actually didn't remember the girl's name. I did hear about this story, and I thought it was so interesting, and I could not find the girl's name anywhere, so I tried to search for it recently, and I finally found the story that I read about years ago. This is the story of Heather Elvis. Heather Rochelle Elvis was born in Horry County, South Carolina, on June 30th, 1993. This also means that I might have gotten along with her, because I've noticed that a lot of my friends are Cancer zodiac sign, which is what Heather was. I usually get along with those people really well. Heather also had a younger sister named Morgan, and they were really close with her sister. Heather graduated from St. James High School in Horry County, and soon after graduation, she decided to move out from her parents' house because she wanted to be independent, and her parents allowed her to do that. She never wanted to rely on others, so she moved out and got herself a roommate who was also her best friend, named Brianna. They moved to a town called Carolina Forest. Heather was very artistic, and she had a passion for makeup. In fact, she dreamed to one day become a makeup artist. That was her goal in life. And she enrolled herself into cosmetology school, but while saving money for her future plans, she was working 2 jobs. jobs was being a hostess at a restaurant called Tilted Kilt, and she also worked at the House of Blues concert venue as part-time, also in Myrtle Beach. I'm not sure what she was doing at the House of Blues, but she was a very busy girl. And this is all meanwhile she was attending cosmetology school, so pretty much had no free time. Heather's main job was at the Tilted Kilt. And if you don't know what a Tilted Kilt restaurant is, it's a chain restaurant that is in most states in North America and United States. This is where girls, the waitress and the hostess, they wear fairly short skirts and open tops so you can see their breast. I'm wondering if they have a special criteria of how the girls are supposed to look in these kind of places before they hire you, because it seems that all girls look very gorgeous all the time and in shape as well. Heather was very flirtatious and she was very fun to be around. So she would flirt with a lot of guys that would come in, and of course the guys that would work with them as well. Heather was not just flirtatious, she was very loving and she loved to help out people. She even went on a missionary trip to Costa Rica to help people rebuild houses. I think it was after a hurricane. And she was very proud when she was able to fix a roof all by herself. A single mother was living under this roof, so Heather made it her mission to help this poor woman to fix her roof. And she said after the roof was fixed, they both hugged each other and they both cried, and she felt so amazing after this. In 2013, Heather was only 20 years old, and like many young adults, Heather enjoyed going on social media, and at that time Twitter was very popular among young adults, especially to express your feelings. And also she would post videos on wine, which was kind of similar to TikTok. You just post silly videos, and millions of people were using this platform and the application on the phone. Heather would not deny to her friends that she was extremely attracted to older men. She didn't like guys her age. She only wanted to date older men, and this is who she found more attractive. While working at the Tilted Kilt, Heather began to express interest in a guy who was a repairman at the Tilted Kilt. His name was Sidney Moorer, and she was very attracted to this guy. Sidney was 38 years old, so he was almost twice her age. On July 7th, 2013, Heather tweeted on her Twitter account that she really likes this guy who is a repairman at her work. And she even tweeted things like, quote, "Someday I will drag that man into a mop closet and have my way with him. Lord have mercy," unquote. On July 10th, 2013, while responding to a friend's tweet, Heather said that she made a special trip to the House of Blues, where Sidney was not working, but he was there repairing something, and she decided to go visit him there. And she told her friend, Sidney will be there tonight, so I gotta make an appearance. It wasn't clear from the tweets that she kept posting if Heather knew that Sidney had a wife actually, and 3 kids. However, on July 10th, so the same day when she went to the House of Blues, she tweeted again that evening, "Baby did a bad thing." And then she posted another tweet that said, "I'm in way too deep, but watch me get deeper." She even had some cryptic messages on Twitter while talking with a friend that suggested that Heather might be pregnant. Heather would often discuss her relationship with Sidney with all her friends and her coworkers, and all her coworkers knew that something was up with both of them. They would be always together, and Sidney would even come visit her when he wasn't working. One day, according to the manager of Tilted Kilt, Heather asked the manager to charge her phone in the office because this is where the outlet was, and the phone lit up when it was in the office, so she was able to see new text messages come through. And the manager said that she saw some texts that she regretted seeing, but she saw them already. And one of the texts mentioned them having sex in the back patio of Tilted Kilt. So it was Sidney and Heather communicating with each other, talking about this. I wonder how they managed to hide and not get caught, unless it was after hours somehow. Also, a lot of coworkers noticed that Sidney would come on his free days when he wasn't working. He would bring coffee and bagels and different goodies for Heather, and he would just hang out with her at the hostess stand, which the manager didn't really like. On September 21st, 2013, Heather tweeted, "Once upon a time, an angel and a devil fell in love. It did not end well." It was speculated by many people that this is actually when the relationship ended between Heather and Sidney. According to Heather's best friend Brianna, who was also a co-worker of hers at Tilted Kilt, she said that Sidney actually called by direction of his wife. So the wife of Sidney, her name is Tammy, she told Sidney to call her and end the relationship. And not only that, but he said on the phone that Heather was nothing to him, and that she was just someone who spread her legs for him. He also said that he did not want anything to do with her. He has a wife and kids, and he's happy with his life, and he wants her to leave him alone. And according to Brianna, the best friend, this is when Heather completely got devastated. She was completely torn apart. She was in love with this guy and he did this to her. She was so sad about this whole situation. I am not sure if Heather knew about the wife before this happened, but now she did. Tammy, meanwhile, was going around and telling her friends that her husband, quote, cheated on her. But it never got any further than oral sex because she was able to stop it right on time, so it wouldn't get any further than this. However, she must have known that they had a full-on affair because right after this, she began to send Heather nude pictures of herself and Sidney having sex in public places. Can you imagine receiving this kind of text messages? This person is just so disgusting. Who does that? I mean, she was really mad apparently, but to send your own sex pictures of yourself there as well to someone, complete stranger. Not only that, but allegedly Tammy also handcuffed her husband to the bed at night so he doesn't run away from her. I mean, if it gets to the point when the only way to keep them is to handcuff them to bed, it's kind of scary. I would not want this kind of relationship. You know, you're just forcing this person to be with you. And why would Sidney want to live like this in the first place? He obliged to this, so he wanted this as well. Tammy changed the password on Sidney's phone, so only she was able to access all his messages, everything on the phone pretty much. To text other people from his phone. So he had pretty much no privacy whatsoever. How sad is this? What a sad life he must have been living. And apparently he agreed to this to save the marriage with Tammy, and so he doesn't lose kids. But I think at this point the marriage is gone already. There's nothing to save. Maybe to not lose the kids, but there was, to me, when it comes to this, there's no marriage to save at this point. Another weird thing that, of course, Tammy made Sidney do is get a tattoo of her name below his belly button. What a healthy relationship. Meanwhile, Tammy continued harassing Heather already when the relationship was already over. She was continuing harassing, texting Heather when Heather told her that she has nothing to do with Sidney anymore. Heather responded that she doesn't want her husband anymore, has nothing to do with him, and she has moved on. But this also didn't satisfy Tammy, because now she was calling Tilted Guilt every day and harassing her. They are trying to get her fired. She was saying that her husband will stop working for them if she doesn't get fired or doesn't get less days. And since Sidney was the only repairman in the whole restaurant, of course he was more important then hostess Heather, who there was a few of them there, so they wouldn't lose much if she got fired or they gave her less hours. So they began to cut her shifts to the point that she was now working a few hours a week and she couldn't really support herself. During this point, Sidney began to text Heather again and telling her that his wife actually is not mad at him anymore and has forgiven both of them. It's because she also had a boyfriend on the side and they have an open marriage. He said that the only reason why his wife was mad is because he didn't tell her the truth, that he lied to her about this situation. Heather said that it's okay, but she wants nothing to do with him or his wife anymore. And she also asked Sidney to tell his wife to stop calling and harassing her at work so she gets more hours because she needs money. On November 5th, 2013, Heather tweeted this: "Hey married fellas, you can either cheat on your wife or murder her. Never both. That's when you get caught." On November 19th, 2013, Sidney and his wife, Tammy, went on a 3-week vacation to Disneyland. Can you believe that? That's a very long vacation to Disneyland. So they ended up coming back from this vacation on December 11th. And Heather was already a different person at this time. She moved on. She started dating a different guy. And everything was going good in her life. Allegedly, Heather even began to attend church with her best friend Brianna every Sunday. By the way, guys, if you can't see your stitches, just stretch it out like that. And you see those holes? That's where the stitches are. A little trick. Most of the time it works. However, at this time also, co-workers began to notice that Heather began to gain some weight within a short period of time, and she needed bigger clothes and bigger bra sizes because Tilted Guild provided all that for them. And so she ordered a bigger bra size and a bigger clothes, a skirt and a shirt. And the manager said that she used to wear an A cup, but now she was wearing a C cup all of a sudden within a month. And also manager testified later and said that she remembers Heather going to the bathroom to take a pregnancy test at this time, and the test being inconclusive or an error, and that means she probably didn't use it correctly. On December 17th of 2013, Heather went out with a guy named Steven, who was gonna teach her how to drive a stick shift manual car in a parking lot. That was kind of like their date, which kind of reminded me of my own youth when I had a date like that as well, when a friend of mine taught me how to drive a stick shift in a parking lot. So it brought back some memories. And this is when Heather even sent a picture to her dad behind the wheel of this car, showing him that she's learning how to drive a stick shift. And her dad was very proud that she was doing that, because he said that he tried to teach her before as well, so he was hoping that she would learn eventually. So Stephen drove Heather to her apartment at around 1:15 a.m. and about 20 minutes later, after this, she received a phone call from a payphone. So it was around 1:35 a.m. at this point. Heather was actually home alone because her roommate Brianna was visiting her family in another state. And so the phone records showed that she did call Brianna after this phone call on a payphone. Apparently, the conversation that she had with Brianna was that she received a phone call from Sidney from a payphone somewhere, and he was saying that he does not want to be with his wife anymore, and he ended things with her, and he now wants to go back to Heather, and he wants to be with her, and he now wants to meet with her at this place where he was at. It was like a river or something. According to Brianna, Heather called her right after this conversation, and she was crying so much. She was bawling. She didn't know what to do, because she was almost forgetting him now, and here he is again. So she called Brianna for advice, pretty much. And Brianna told her to sleep on it. Don't worry about it right now. And Heather agreed with her. She was like, "You're right. I should probably do that. Yes. Good idea. Thank you for this advice." And this was the last conversation that Brianna would ever have with Heather. So nobody really knows what happened after this conversation. But on December 19th, in the evening, Heather's green Dodge was found on a parking lot of Peachtree Landing along the river. And this was about 8 miles away from where Heather lived. Her car was locked when it was found, but police managed to open it, and they found that her phone, her car keys, and her wallet were all missing from the car. She did not show up to either of her jobs the next day. A mistake was made by police that day, and it was that they called her dad to pick up the car, and so he drove the car back home without police getting any forensic evidence from that night. And they got new fingerprints now from the dad. So that was a really big mistake, because police didn't think that the situation was very serious at that time. Not long after that, though, Horry County Police Department began a missing person investigation, and naturally they went to question the last person that saw her, and that was the guy that she was dating, Stephen. But after some questioning and doing a polygraph test on him, he also had an alibi. They ruled him out of the picture as a suspect. Can you imagine going not find any evidence or clues in that area. After getting phone records from Heather's phone company, police was able to see a lot more that was going on her phone. A lot of activity after that conversation with her best friend Brianna. So they were able to create a story of where she might have been and what she was doing. So Heather hung up the phone with her best friend at around 1:45 a.m. It looked like Heather tried to call back the phone number from the payphone at about 2:30 a.m. with no response, of course, because it was a payphone. So probably nobody was there at that time. And the call that Heather made to that payphone, her phone was pinned at her apartment at this moment. After that, the phone suddenly pinned at a bar and grill about 10 minutes away from her own apartment. So she was somewhere else, or her phone was. And I'm not sure if this bar and grill was opened at this time, because it was at this point around 3 in the morning. So where I live, all places close at around 2, so I'm surprised that something would stay open for so long. But this was where she was at, apparently. She was there for about 15 minutes, and while she was at this bar and grill, she tried calling Sidney's number one more time with no answer. At around 3:25 a.m., Heather's phone pinned again at her apartment, so her phone was back at the apartment. We're not sure if it was her that was using the phone or someone else. And this is when there was a phone call made from Heather's phone to Sidney's phone at around the same time, and he did answer this time. This conversation lasted for 4 minutes, and it was later confirmed that his phone was located at his own house during this conversation. So he did have his phone at his house, and she was at her own house. About 8 minutes after that, Heather's phone pinned at Peachtree Landing is where her car was eventually found, with no one inside. At around 3:37 a.m., 3 more attempts to call Sidney's phone were made, with no luck. Sidney did not pick up the phone these times. A minute after that, data records for Heather's phone ended, and we don't know what happened after that. Maybe Heather's life was unfortunately ended right at that time. And the place where her phone stopped getting any pins was at Wakaman National Wildlife Refuge. So it's just a middle of forest there. This is when police found out that Heather and Sidney had an affair, and Sidney had a wife that was harassing Heather at this point. So they decided to go question them. But before they questioned them, they actually found a CCTV footage of Sidney at a local Walmart nearby the Peachtree Landing where Heather's car was found. Not very long before that. He was there buying pregnancy tests and cigars at around 1:12 a.m. And then he is seen leaving Walmart and using a payphone nearby. After that, Sidney's car was seen at a private security footage, and he was going towards his own house from Peachtree Landing. It goes one direction at 3:36 a.m. After that, going towards Peachtree Landing, and then at was going back again to his own house. So police was already suspecting that Sidney might have been involved, but they didn't have any proof about it. And so on February 21st, 2014, police finally got a search warrant to search the Moore's house, and they closed up the whole area around the house and searched for 11 hours. And this is when they arrested Tammy and Sidney for obstruction of justice, kidnapping, murder, and indecent exposure. And this was due to the pictures that they found that they took of themselves and videos of having sex in public places. Police did not specify what evidence exactly they found to lead them to believe that they were the main suspects. And at the interrogation, Sidney completely denied ever calling Heather that night. But after some pushing from the detectives, he did admit that he did call her, but the reason why he called her is to tell her to leave him alone, to leave him and his beautiful wife and stop harassing him. There was also a CCTV footage that was filmed from houses nearby, and it showed that Tammy and Sidney are deep cleaning their truck for the longest time, and that looks really suspicious. A gag order was placed on this case because it became so high profile. Apparently additional charges were also added to both Tammy and Sidney. These charges were unrelated to the case, but they had to do with financial discrepancies and Medicaid fraud, because I guess they didn't report the amount of income that they made to get Medicaid. Tammy, meanwhile, got a lot of people supporting her on social media. Because prior to the murder, Tammy apparently was posting on her Facebook saying that Heather was stalking them and that she won't leave her family alone and she's a whore, and just calling her different names, and that she is obsessed with her husband. And then if you go to Heather's tweets and check them out, you would see that she was posting stuff that would seem that she might have been obsessed with Sidney a little bit too much, and they made her look like a bad person, even though she was the victim. She might have also known that Sidney was married because of her tweets. In 2015, so after 11 months of sitting in jail, both Tammy and Sidney were released from jail because there was not enough proof, not enough evidence to keep them there, and there was no direct evidence that they actually did kill her. They were even both allowed to move to Florida. Can you believe this? Because apparently they claimed that they cannot find jobs now in South Carolina since everyone knows this case. It was so high profile and their faces were plastered all over media. So of course no one wants to hire them now. And then in March 2016, the charges were completely dropped because there was no evidence, even though there was all this CCTV footage, but it was not enough. The body was never found, and there was no direct evidence, unfortunately. The Elvis family was devastated. in June 2016, a trial was held, and prosecution gathered the most evidence they could get, the most witnesses. Since they didn't have that much direct evidence, they had a lot of witnesses. At least. The state presented the case over 4 days. And this is when they got the co-workers of Tilted Guild to testify. And they all said that they knew that Sidney and Heather were together, and Sidney would constantly visit Heather. The manager testified that she saw those text messages, and the manager said that she's seen Heather take the test, the pregnancy test, in the bathroom. The jury was also shown surveillance footage from the Walmart, from Tammy and Sidney cleaning the car, and also Bree, the best friend of Heather, testified, and she was the last person who talked to her when Heather was very devastated and didn't know what to do, and she told her that Sidney called her and told her he wants to be with her, and she was crying and just torn. She didn't know what to do, and she was asking for advice. And at the end, the jury was divided. 10 wanted to convict Sidney, and 10 didn't agree, and they didn't want to convict him. So the judge declared a mistrial. While the trial was going on, actually, a side note that Sidney violated the gag order. Can you believe this? So he spoke with the media on the second day of trial and ended up getting 5 months in jail just for violating the gag order. However, he was released 2 months later after good behavior. And so over a year later, in 2017 now, there was a trial that was held again, and Sidney was charged with obstruction. And prosecution tried to say that because Sidney initially denied that he made that phone call from payphone, it hindered the process of investigation. So finally, after 3 days of the trial, Sidney was convicted for obstruction, and he was sentenced to 10 years. So it seemed that the judge, he just wanted to sentence him for something because everyone knew that he was the one who did this with his wife, but they couldn't find any evidence to prove it. So they were just trying to find something on them, just anything. In October 2018, this is when Tammy went to trial, and this is when all the jealous texts that she would send to Heather came out. All the harassing text messages and the phone calls that she would make to Tilted Guild, and the nude pictures that she would send of herself and of Sidney having sex to Heather. How disgusting. So it didn't look good for Tammy, and it just seemed like she was a very jealous, controlling wife, and it looked like she had the reason to kill Heather. There were also texts that show that she might have known about Heather's pregnancy, and this might have motivated to take action. And Sidney's mom also testified, and she said that allegedly when Tammy found out about the affair between Heather and Sidney, she beat him at home when he got home. She beat him, I don't know with what, but yeah, she was just so controlling. She would handcuff him to side actually, so she wasn't lying about that. And the only person that was testifying for the defense was Ashley, the sister of Tammy, and she testified saying that she did babysit the kids that day or that night because they often went super late at night somewhere with Sidney to have sex in public places because that was their thing. They like to do that. And then the reason why Sidney was buying a pregnancy test at Walmart that day is because they had an assumption that Tammy might have been pregnant at this moment, but nobody knows why exactly the pregnancy test was bought along with cigars. So after 11 days of trial, both Tammy and Sidney were found guilty on the charges of kidnapping and conspiracy because nobody confessed and no body was found, but there was all this evidence that they had something to do with it. So this is the charges they could give them. So they were both sentenced to 30 years. They both tried to appeal since then, but nothing gone through, and they're still sitting in prison at this moment. And I'm almost done with this second year. Just need to do a picot, which is 1 single crochet, slip stitch into the second stitch, and then treble crochet, treble crochet, and then double crochet 3 times in the same stitch. Oops. So what do you guys think? Why do you think that Sidney was buying pregnancy tests that day? Was it for Heather? Were they just trying to like show it in her face, like, take this test, we know you're pregnant, or something crazy like that, and then they did something to her? Who knows? Or were they even the ones? I think so. I think justice was served, kind of, but still the body was never found. So that's the sad part about this case, is she is still missing. No body was found and nobody's talking. They're not saying what they did to her, where she is. So hopefully one day we would know the truth. And guys, I actually might have a special guest joining me for next video. If you are not surprised, I'm just letting you know in advance there's gonna be somebody else in my video, and it's gonna be my cousin. So we will talk about the same things, but I've never done it with other person, so it will be a very unique experience.